What authoritarian people do, particularly moralists do, they ignore something like LSD. Then when it comes along, you can't ignore it, then you trivialize it. Oh, it's nothing, it's just like that. And then they can't do that, they demonize it. So I don't accept the concept that the government can tell any adult what to do with their nervous system or their body or their sensory apparatus. The same with censorship of movies, the censorship of books. I'm just totally against any government or religious minding my business. Mind your own business. Stay out of my business. You can't run a factory civilization in which people are expanding their consciousness. They've got to be doing their job, because in an industrial mechanical society, if you're on an assembly line, a good person is dependable, prompt, reliable, productive, and, of course, replaceable. If you notice in the 60s, there was a big movement against this. The basic issues of the 60s, to me, were individualism, look within, rediscover the old religions. And this brings us, of course, to other aspects of the 60s culture, the counterculture, the concern with ecology, because that's a pagan thing. That's a pre-industrial thing, where you're very aware of the relationship between the human being and the land and nature. These are almost corny platitudes, but they happen to be true. I'm a scientist, and it's the duty of a scientist to make public his or her discoveries. And I was one of literally scores, even hundreds of reputable and I would even say in some cases distinguished people who were pointing this out. What none of us understood in the mid-60s, Bob, was the baby boom phenomenon. We were so naive at Harvard back in the 60s that we assumed that psychedelic plants would be used at places like Harvard, ministers, doctors, psychiatrists, artists, and we were doing it in that context, and it was extremely successful. It never occurred to us that out in San Francisco, Ken Kesey and the Hells Angels and the Grateful Dead, and suddenly you had this mass pagan movement of young people. And unfortunately, many of the young people in the 60s were doing it out of peer pressure. Hey, you didn't want to be the only kid in the block that was not having this wonderful experience. And we were emphasizing preparation and knowing what you're doing, but it was simply a wave that took us all by surprise. The dangers and the abuses of LSD have been tremendously inflated. Marijuana, LSD, and the psychedelic plants, everybody knows, they're the most benign, they're the least dangerous. So you tally up the scoreboard and you find out that LSD never produced, think about LSD, it was so powerful that someone would come home and they had a glow in their eye, they've seen God or they've danced with angels, and of course that kind of shakes people up. But actually the dangers of LSD are tremendously, they've been demonized. And 10% of any group are going to mess it up, no matter what it is. Television, lovemaking, you name it, guns. You can't run a society that, what is this, some sort of a mental hospital state where the government, because one out of 1,000 people can misuse something, the rest of us can't use it? This is not very logical. And it should be used with great awe and prudence, and should be used for noble goals, to discover yourself, to get in better communion with other people, to improve your life. That was the goal.